Hello everyone, and welcome for this tutorial on aepp, the Python wrapper for Adobe Experience Platform. In this video, we will look in the schema design and how to use the schema module for aepp. At the introduction of this video, I will define what is the schema in aepp, in Adobe Experience Platform, and then I will go through Adobe Experience Platform API wrapper aepp to start working with it and show you the different methods available for it. As a disclaimer, this is personal video setup, so maybe oversimplifying elements or omitting some elements in order to help the simplification and the understanding of the schema in aepp. It's not a complete technical deep dive, but it will give you a lot of insight if you're not familiar with schema design in Adobe Experience Platform. Without further ado, let's get started. So the agenda is as follows. The overview of what a schema is in Adobe Experience Platform, and then the app module for schema. In Adobe Experience Platform, schema are composed of field groups. Schema are also associated to a class, and we have two main classes for B2C models. We have more classes available for B2B models, and there are some extra classes that we can have a look later. But as of today, we will mostly discuss of the two main ones. Those are profile and event-based classes. Profile classes are meant for storing data related to attribute of users. As Adobe Experience Platform expects you to load profile information. So every record is associated to a user, to a profile, someone with an identity. Then you can have some attributes such as the membership, loyalty, age, gender, and so forth. And event-based classes are associated with timestamps. So those are all of the events that a user or profile could be experiencing, and then you record that in Adobe Experience Platform in an event-based schema classes. The fields contained in the schema are actually belonging to field groups. One of the misunderstanding that is done through the UI is that when you actually modify your schema and create a schema to define your field that you're going to load, you think you are adding fields to a schema, but the fields are always associated to a field group. That's why you actually cannot create field anymore. It was in the past possible, but you cannot create fields anymore associated to the schema, but you can only associate field to a field groups. Field groups contain native fields such as string, integer, or double, long, short, date, time, and so forth. And they can also contain a specific field data type. What are data type? Data type are more complex representation of field, which could be an object-oriented field. We'll see that later. And the main idea of a data type is something that you will need to create once, and you can repeat it multiple times within the same schema. And that's the main difference between the field groups and a data type. There is a misunderstanding, and we'll see that later, about when to use a field group and when to use a data type. But mostly, field groups are meant to be created once across your sandbox, and then can be reused across different schema. Data type can be created once again per sandbox, but then it's meant to be used multiple times within one schema, not across schema. So if you have an element that is defined only once in a schema, you don't need a data type for it. If you are having something that is repeated more than once in your schema, then you may consider data type. Adding data type would generate more complexity because you handle another abstraction and another dependencies being built on, but sometimes it may be worth it if you have this field repeated multiple times. Official schema, field groups, and data type can and should not be modified. Technically, there are potential to remove or omit some of the field that are not available, that are available, sorry, from official field groups or schemas. I would not recommend to do that as it creates complexity and then could hide some elements from future usage, or at least it needs to be documented if you're doing any modification on out of the field schema or field groups that you or data type that are existing. As I was explaining in the introduction of Adobe Experience Platform requires identities to be set. Identity setup in a schema is set as a descriptor. The descriptor is a meta field that is added to your schema and defining which of the field is actually going to be your identity or containing the identity field. It will define which field in your schema and also which namespace that you have defined is going to be represented in that field. The descriptor itself can have multiple purpose. So here we just discussed the identity descriptor, but it can have way more meaningful. You can change a description of an out-of-the-box field via a descriptor. You can add a relationship via a descriptor. You can say this field, in case, for example, of product SKU, you may want to have more additional information attached to that product SKU through a lookup table. That relationship is done via a descriptor as well. Giving you a bit more understanding of the schema dependencies, we'll see that the schema is composed of a class and the different field groups. The field groups are containing some native field. It could be string, it could be object, it could be double, it could be integer, and you can have a custom data type that has other native data types, such as native string, object, double, integer. Important to notice, it is possible to have a data type referencing another data type. Then you're building a way more complex relationship. And it's could be useful in some situation, but usually it's a smell for bad design decision as you try to streamline all of your design to make sure they live independently from each other and create as little dependency as required for your use cases. So schema relationship that are explained are schema to field groups. There is one schema, you can have multiple field groups, so 1 to n. Schema to class, you always have only one class associated to a schema. A schema to descriptor, you have one schema and you can have multiple descriptors. Field groups to fields, so you can have multiple fields in the field groups. Field groups to data type, you can have multiple field groups and multiple data type. And I could have added data type to data type. You could have end-to-end relationship in that case, but it's not recommended practice. There are several use cases to use the API for schema. One is to get the list of all the schemas, get the schema definition in different version. We're going to see that later. Get field group and specific field groups that are associated to schemas. Get data type, get classes, and if you want to create, update, or delete all of the above in a more scalable way, you will need the API capability. aepp offers additional capability on schema. So there are some elements that we're going to see through different videos: schema manager, field group manager, data type manager, and class manager. And these modules and classes are helping you to manipulate this existing component or create new component directly. It will programmatically able to handle them, parse the definition, and provide easy manipulation of those elements. You can help and search for elements inside your schema that can be very helpful in case you have a very long schema or very big schema that needs to be handled at a global scale. So done on this presentation, and now I'm going to do a demonstration of the aepp setup. For the aepp setup, so I'm going to my folder that I have created in the previous videos. I have my configuration now that has aepp demo configuration file that we have defined together in one of the previous video, and I would like to start a new Jupyter lab environment. So for this, in my Microsoft machine, I will need to do a shift right click here and open in terminal and type Jupyter Lab in order to open that element. This will start a new browser tab. And if you go on here, so you see that I have my last demo that I was doing with you that is available. And if I look here on the file browser, I can see all of my file. I will close this one and I will start again a fresh new notebook about schemas. Rename that to schema demo. Same. And I will import app, and from app, I will import schema. As I was explaining before, and I will start the next few videos to explain that again, you can save the configuration to which sandbox you want to have, you are connected to. For that, you can again import the config file. So you can type app.import, and then in the notebook environment, you can do tab, propose the autocomplete, import config file, then import app tab demo JSON. Then I can specify which sandbox. In our case, we're going to go to prod, and I'm going to specify that I want to save that in an instance of a class connect instance true, and here I'm going to save that. So now I am able to use that configuration for this specific sandbox in any of the following submodule and classes that I'm using. In our case, we want to use that with the schema module, so I'm going to now use the prod schema to save this instance of the schema class that I'm going to use, and I'm going to use config. Please take the prod configuration that I have actually imported. So now I do have a type. If I look at the type, this is a schema class from the app schema module. I can make sure that I am on the correct sandbox, prod. I can also look at the header that has been generated for me. In case you want to use Postman or any of the things, you can actually use that element directly. And you can have access to all of the method schema by doing the dot notation and tab. And you can see all of these elements available. So you can check which endpoint of the API is being used. And you can see that we're using the Schema Registry endpoint to request the different things. And then there is a different additional path for the endpoint afterwards. So in my case, I may want to have my schemas described. So all of the schema that are in the sandbox, I can do prod schema and get tab. And you see that I have all of those elements available for as a get method. So basically they are abstraction of the get method API resource. And you see that I have a get schemas somewhere, and there is get schema with the S and without the S. So with the S is giving you all of the schemas. You can actually have some capability that you can use in parameters. As a reminder, doing Shift Tab here will give you in the notebook environment all of the information of what is possible. And by default, I don't want to see ad hoc schemas that could be created based on query service output. But I can also specify a specific class that I want to filter on. I give you some example directly in the doc string. So in my case, I'm not wanting to add any of those parameters. I'm just going to add all of those schema. And I can have a look into that in the next cell. And you can see here all of my schema available. So data analyst, event, data send, journey, my first lookup, AGO, STO, AGO XD, decision event schema, all of those elements. It could be a bit hard to read, and especially because this is a list, as you can see. It could be hard to read and understand what is there. So as soon as you have done a get schema, I automatically provide in the data attribute a dictionary that can actually give you their name and ID. So now I can actually have a look, and if you know the name, which is usually something that the people working in the Adobe Experience Platform knows, you know the name, you don't have to worry about any of the things. You can do the get schema and then get the sorry, we get interrupted, but here is the second part. So in case you have the name of your schema, which is something that you already know, you can get then directly this, and you can here start having the name directly. So in case of data analyst event, I would just take this actually and this pass it here, and you can get this alt ID. We can also do it with the normal ID, which will be schema ID here, which is a bit longer. It has an HTTP reference here. And the same way, this goes into field groups. So if I do field group, which will be schema, sorry, schema, I get field groups. Then I can actually do prod schema data field groups alt ID, and here it's giving you all of the name of the field groups, and there are different IDs. The ID are important when you use it through APIs. APIs only understand IDs, and therefore you need to use either the alt ID or the normal ID to manipulate all of the things. So for example, if I want this specific data analyst, so I'm going to do that, get field group without the S this time. So in this time, the element without the S usually requires an ID to be passed, and you see it's required. You can see the different version, full, flat, deprecated, like all of information that you can add here. And I'm just going to pass this element here with the name here, which you may know. And here I can directly get the ID, and here it's giving me the definition of the field group. And you see that here is the full definition of the field group, which the different field. So I have actually search keyword, which is one of the fields. I have returning visitors, post title. This is based on the data analyst website tracking that I'm tracking. So I see I track the post length, how many words it has, the subcategory, the category, and some elements that have been added as well. So new field 2, for example, is one of the elements that is available. So if you look the same way for a schema, so now let's get it a bit slower, and then we brought schema, get schema this time without the S, and again we're going to take either this or this one. It works the same way. And here I want to explain to you some of the parameters you can have. The version is the version of the schema you want to add. Automatically, it's going to refer to the last one. Schema ID is the first element we are passing here. And then you can see there is the full. When you retrieve a schema, you can either retrieve the full element, which means everything has been resolved, all dependency to all of the different field groups is being resolved, or if you want to see the references to all of the field groups. As I was saying, the schema is a container associating to a class and associated to different field groups, and the field group are associated to different data type. You may not want to see this deprecation, these dependencies. Therefore, you can pass the full parameters, which is by default on. And in that case, I'm going to show you what it looks like. And then after, I'm going to do full false. If you want to have the descriptors attached to the schema and the schema type, what you want to see. So for example, for us, you may want to see the XEID, which is going to be the dot notation that you're expecting. And if you want to flatten that schema, and if you want to save it in the file, that's going to be saved in the folder called schema afterwards. We can actually do that just to showcase this element save equals true. And I'm going to do that and show you how it looks like. So you see that everything is being page category, post lens is being described, the EMEA consulting is the organization and what we call tenant ID, when every custom field is attached to that one. And you see that different elements are also available. So underscore ID, the experience ID, the experience field, and all of those elements are actually provided. If I look in my folders, actually, I go back to my folders, I see I have a schema now, and that is even the JSON is now being repeated. And here you have the whole definition, which you can see is pretty long. And it's actually a very small schema. I have it just using the XDM for IP Web SDK. And you can see all of the different field group that is being used for this in the meta extent. And you see it has almost 5,000 lines. So you would need a kind of parser to understand what's going on if you want to use that. So in the UI as well, there are some elements that are a bit hidden and you don't need to, or you don't have all of the information available. But still, it's getting complicated to get that information in a correct manner and see all of the different information, what is available in schema, what is not available, and so forth. So this is where we're going to need to have some additional methods available in the future, what are the managers that help you handle schemas and field groups and data type as well. And we're going to see them in the next video. For now, you see that we can get the schema and we can save it. Now I want to show you how it looks like if you are now doing with the full equal false. And I'm going to save that, not save that, because you have seen this one, but this one is going to be much smaller. You see, it's much smaller, and it's only going to contain the different elements that are composed of the schema. And here you have all the dependency. You see, I'm using the following class, which is an experience event. I'm using this mixin, which is actually my data analyst mixin that I have actually used here. That it's this field group, so 590, which is the one, if I go down, is here, 590. And I'm going to use the experience event marketing, the AP with DK experience, and the experience event all for target, for tracking my target experiment. You can see what is required, underscore the ID and the timestamp. And these are XDM notation. I think I could change that by using the schema type, not as XDM notation, but as XID. Okay. XID. Syntax. I was having equal parameters. And now you see that the required are now underscore ID and timestamp, which is what you expect. XDM is the schema definition as we define it. XID is the type of payload you are going to load. For you, when you load data, you're going to use the XED type of definition. In the broad schema capability, you have access to create a B2B schema in case you want to actually create all of those B2B schema for people that are B2B clients. When you have a new instance, normally you have some JSON, some Postman script that you need to run to create some schemas according to the different B2B default schema that you need to have for account and everything. This method is also available in aepp. If you want to do that, you can delete all of these elements. You can directly create a field group manager or a schema manager based on the schema ID. We're going to do that in the next video. You can patch a schema, which is important. And you can also patch all of the different field groups as well and get the descriptors. That's very important information that the descriptor are part of the Schema API registry API. So this is how you get started with aepp with schemas. As you can see, it's kind of helpful to get a list of all of the things, but really using aepp for schema modification and schema understanding is not really, as I was showing you, uh, really helpful as of today. So we are going to dive deeper into this in the next video, and how you can really leverage aepp and all of the manager to help you on schema modification, schema understanding, and schema analysis.